All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. This is our last art and art history and art and sustainability talk of the semester. So thank you for coming. I want to introduce you to Maru. Maru García is a Mexican LA-based artist and chemist working across art, science, and environment. Her methodology combines laboratory and fieldwork tools from her background in plant chemistry and the pharmaceutical industry. Her use of media includes research, installations, performance, sculpture, and video, usually with the presence of organic matter to help understand the biological processes occurring in complex systems. Her areas of interest are biosystems, multi-species relations, and the capacity of living organisms, including humans, to act as remediators in contaminated sites. Her work highlights the importance of eco-aesthetics, in which relations are proposed as a way of building cultures of regeneration. At the same time, she questions the way science and technology have influenced humans and more than humans within the natural world. Maru has participated in conferences, solo and group exhibitions in North America, Europe, and Asia. Currently, she is a Getty Foundation grant recipient for the exhibition Sync, Places We Call Home, with Self-Help Graphics and Art, to be presented in the Pacific Standard Time Art and Science in LA in 2024. She's an associate research scientist in mineral sciences at the Natural History Museum of LA County and a 2021-22 artist in residence at 18th Street Art Center. Thank you, Maru, for being here, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Kate, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm really excited and happy to be in this beautiful campus in Malibu. And yeah, today I want to talk a little bit about my practice, about some of my work that I hope that it's relevant for your own work and practice. And the topic that I want to talk about is framing my work around eco-aesthetics and how our relationships can lead us to start building these cultures of regeneration that we need so desperately in this current times. So as Kate already mentioned, my areas of interest are biosystems, multi-species relations, and the capacity of living organisms. And I'm putting inside humans to do this work that is needed for remediation. And I just want to start talking about the word of ecology and what does that mean. And I think I remember when I was little, I was always curious and like wanting to know more about the environment that was around me. At that time, I was living in Mexico. I didn't have like a lot of access to what we call nature, but I had a little patio. And that for me was my access to this natural world. And I will like create little homes for insects and play with soil and make my mud pies and all those things that children do. But I don't know, at that time, I really felt that connection and I felt that I wanted to go further. And that's why I came to study, start with chemistry, like as an entrance point to learn more about what was surrounding me, and then later moved to the arts. But anyway, all this to say that ecology has been in my mind. And if we go to the root of the term ecology, ecology comes from the Greek that means that the Greek term that is oikos, that means home, and logos, that means study. So it's actually the study of all the relations of the home, the common home that we call our planet. So I thought that bringing ecology to the center will put us in a frame of thinking of relationships, which is what I'm talking right now, when I wanted to talk about today. But every time that I go to places, or if I start a conversation about ecology or sustainability or environmental topics, people would just probably start thinking about what it's like already, like, I don't know, shared a lot of ways to start thinking of like having a more sustainable way of living. And then we start thinking about the arts and people saying, oh, okay, so you work in recycling, or you do like reducing or reusing, which is great. But I think that we should move forward that, and then people start thinking about, okay, in that case, let's think of repair, repurpose, rot, or refuse, which also are great. But I think that it should go further, not just thinking about how we deal with our resources or what we have as the end results of our consumption. And that's how I want us to start thinking in other arts that could give us a better sense of how can we really connect with the rest of the natural world. And for that, I am bringing this other arts that I want us to think of, which will start with relate, remember, respect, rethink, reconcile, restore, remediate, and regenerate. So these are the R's that I think have the power to really create changes in our current society. And talking about relationships, now I want to share a little bit of some of the projects that I've done that are related with this concept, and that, yeah, it's basically wanting us to really think of us as part of the natural world. So one of the projects that I did when I was at UCLA at DMA was starting to research about our place that we occupy in nature. And we usually find that, yeah, humans tend to put ourselves outside of the natural world. So I was very interested about this concept of vivariums, or in this case, the word case that was designed to transport plants. And during the Victorian era was used to contain plants. And it was like actually an ornament, a piece that people will have in their homes to have nature contained. And it will be very beautiful to show. It will have plants or butterflies, things like that. And they will be inside of this bubbles or inside of this transparent containers. So I got very interested about that. And yeah, seeing that we are putting ourselves outside of this container, right? So I was like thinking, how can we reframe this? And if we are talking of humans being part of nature, what would be the new concept of a vivarium? So I started to do explorations, embodied explorations, one of them putting myself inside of one vivarium to see what would that mean. And I think that the series of iterations of vivarium made me really realize that it's more about the time and the space that we share together. So in this specific case, I went to the coast and I was spending time in these tide pools that were next to the ocean. And basically I was just like laying there inside of this bubble or this contained system that I called later. And I didn't have really the intention to do anything, but just to stay there and be like, just, I don't know, present. And I don't know, it made me think of the different ways in which we can really just pause and really connect with the rest of what is around us. So in this case, I was able to stay there for a couple of hours in a meditative space, encountering this beautiful creatures that live in the tide pools, including anemones and other small organisms. And yeah, it made me realize that we are basically in a vivarium. We consider the planet Earth as our vivarium, right? So this was also, this piece was also thought for being inside of a gallery. And in this case, I was showing some vivariums that were made. The first one showing mushrooms and plants growing, and the second one having also the human inside. In this case, it was a performer, the one that was inside of the vivarium. But I wanted to really talk about that and really ask the questions of how can we really integrate ourselves inside of these ecosystems. So for this installation, I also included some cameras and microscopes that were projecting, live streaming what was happening inside. So people that were able to see the work were able also to feel the scale. So yeah, that was vivarium. And going in the same line of what I was talking to you about relations, I thought that it was a good way to also connect with our common origins. And that's how I want to talk now about this other project, this other work called Membrane Tensions. And this was a commissioned piece by the Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery, in which I was really wanting us to, okay, if we are already spending time with this other than human beings, with these other organisms, how can we really feel ourselves part of their family? And I thought that maybe the way could be really connecting through kinship and realizing that we are evolving from all the organisms and that we have a common origin. So for that, I was inspired on the idea of how life happened. And I was like really going back in the times where we had like this soup of different compounds. And this primordial soup was the place in which membranes came and created the conditions that made life possible. So if we think about that, we're like here because membranes happened and membranes organized in a way of creating containers. So membranes for me are not barriers, but are places of relation and contact. So these containers are what led then to the development of the cell, and the cells then evolved, as we all know. And part of that, I wanted also to research on, I was very interested on theories of evolution, and I came across the work of Lynn Margulis. She was a biologist that was studying evolution and the origin of life through association. So her theory, called symbiogenesis, is the one that says that, yes, one of the drivers of evolution is actually competition, but there is another driver, which is association, and really being connected and being able to help each other. So what she proposed was this theory in which she was saying that some cells evolved through associating one to the other. And the way that they did that was through kind of eating one to the other and engulfing. Imagine a small cell being engulfed by a bigger cell. And instead of being digested, it will stay there. And that two cells now form a new evolved cell that had more capacities to thrive. So this association is what made evolution going faster, because then like each of them were producing compounds and nutrients for each other. And that's how Lynn Margulis was saying that symbiogenesis could have played a very important role for evolution. So all this to say that for this installation, I wanted to bring that origin of life to the gallery. And basically I had these two containers having a culture that could resemble that idea of symbiosis, or a place where microbes are working together. So I don't know if you're familiar with kombucha. Of course, you know that drink. That is coming from a culture that is named Scooby, which is a symbiosis between yeast and bacteria. And I brought to the gallery these two cultures. As you can see, there are two different containers, and they were alive for 3 months that the exhibition was there. And the idea was that, well, the preparators, the art preparators, were taking care of the culture every day. And yeah, that was part of like bringing this idea of different cultures together and alive in the gallery. But what I like a lot about this culture is that besides they work in like as a team, they also produce, and they do the fermentation process, and that's why we drink the kombucha. They also produce a film on top of the surface of these containers that it's basically bacterial cellulose. And that made me remember about the membrane. So this material is actually the same one that plants produce, and it's the same one that you will find in paper. That's what makes paper, cellulose. So these cellulose pieces were harvested every week. And the idea was to install those circles that you can see in the background, covering the the windows and doors of the gallery to make us think of the possibility of all of us being included in a one single membrane. And membrane that, as I'm saying, is not a source of division, but it's actually a place of contact and of interaction. So that's the concept of the membrane that I was bringing here. And through the exploration, also, I was able to develop some sculptures made of the same bacterial cellulose. And these are the representations of what I was explaining to you of the idea of symbiogenesis, of a little cell associating with a bigger one and then forming a new unit. And this same idea was part of these other drawings and these other sculptures that were at the gallery at that time. So yeah, basically, I have other work that is related with relations, but if we have time, maybe we can take a look later. So as I am saying, the idea is that we have to start with this relation so we are able to feel responsible and we feel connected enough that we move forward to remediate and regenerate. As we know, we are living in times where we cannot just be seeing how things happen and without doing anything. At least I think that we should act, and that could be manifested in different ways. If it's like through policy making or through asking our government to do the right thing, or to work locally in our own communities through a specific work. So in my case, as Kate mentioned, I'm from Mexico, and when I arrived here to LA, I started to see the city, of course, with my outsider eyes. And one of the things that came across was the situation of, yeah, how like the city is divided in these different pockets and different people that live in the city. But what are the difference in terms of the environmental conditions that each of these communities are facing? So I took a class, I remember, of remediation in the Department of Engineering. And I would suggest a lot that if you have the time and capacity to reach out to other departments in your school to do that, because it's so enriching to know about what other schools are doing, what other students and classes are having. And I was very grateful to be welcomed to this class, even if I was not an engineering student. But anyway, that class, I remember the assignment was to go around and look for problems that were around our communities or the city related with environmental degradation. And that's how I came across the situation of the Exide case. And I want to ask who is familiar with that. And don't worry, if you're familiar, raise your hand if you know about anything about Exide or lead contamination. Okay. So yeah, when I arrived, I realized that I thought that it was just me because I was not from here, and then that's why I didn't know. But then I started to ask around, and a lot of people didn't know about the situation. And it's basically something that is happening currently, something that is happening in the city. And it's a situation that is caused by a company that was recycling car batteries. So if we think about recycling, we think, yes, that's what we have to do. And I'm not opposed to recycling. But in this case, this plant was doing recycling, not really paying attention of the way that they were doing it and not really following the different requirements to do that. So for more than 30 years, this battery recycling plant was expelling fumes to the air. And these fumes contain lead. And this lead was deposited into the ground for a long time. And I will just show you the map of East Los Angeles, including these areas that are around East Los Angeles, Vernon, Commerce, Maywood, Huntington Park, and Bell, that are surrounding the car battery recycling plant. And what happened is that, as I was explaining, this dust got into the ground and through years, you just started to accumulate. And what these communities are facing now is that basically their backyards, their surroundings are having very high lead levels. So I will explain a little bit what are the consequences of that. But when I learned about this, I was like, what? More than 10,000 properties are impacted by this? This is huge. And the situation was that like just the people that live there knew about this, but a lot of people from, at that time I was at UCLA, from the west side didn't know. So I was like, okay, maybe I should do more research. And I just got very in depth into this, learning that, yeah, like we, as the government is putting the area around this particular location of the site of 1.7 miles around. And that includes, yes, I was saying, more than 10,000 properties. And then there is a cleanup that is happening right now, in which the government, after testing people's homes, they would determine what is the lead levels, and then like they would put them on a list. And the ones that have higher levels of lead, they will be the ones that have priority for cleanup. But this process is taking so long. So right now, this is like, actually, I just checked the website from the TSC, which is the government department that is taking care of this. They've cleaned, a little bit more than 4,000 properties. And they're expecting to clean around 6,000 by 2025. So as you see, this is a problem that is taking very long, and they don't have even like more funding to clean up the rest. So I saw that and I was like already getting very depressed, to be honest. And just also to give a little bit of context, we remember our classes, lead is actually natural element. Yeah, it is natural occurring in the soil. It's a heavy metal. And humans have used it for a long time without like really learning that it's not something that we should do. Because like the Romans use it for their plumbing situation, and that's why the symbol of lead is PB, plumbus. They use it for a long time, transporting water through these pipes. And then it's been used in paints, it's been used in gasoline as an additive, and as I mentioned, in batteries. So it was until recent in the 70s and 80s that the use in paints and gasoline was banned, but we still have it around. And it's until now that we are realizing that, okay, probably it's not a great idea to just keep using lead. Because basically what lead is that once that it enters the people's bodies, it acts as a neurotoxin. So it will interfere with the nervous system and will start creating damage in the brain and the kidneys, liver, blood, reproductive system. And especially in children is when it's like very dangerous, because they're starting to develop their brains, they're starting to develop their nervous system, and then when it's disrupted, basically it's causing intellectual disability, underperforming at a school, and behavioral issues. So this is a very heavy topic, and it's not as beautiful as talking about relations, but it's a reality, and sometimes we have to face that. Like, there are things that are not pretty, and that's why I feel that we as artists, we have the capacity to talk about this, but also to do change. So I just wanted to put just some numbers. You don't have to, of course, get into that. The concentration limits, for example, for soil is 80 parts per million, and we will go to see what are the concentrations of these people. But I wanted to just give you this context so you know, like, what is the part of the research of the projects that I've been working. So yeah, I went to the site. It's a very industrial area, very difficult to read. And yeah, it's just impressive to see how a lot of families live around this very industrial space. I was able to check into databases to see lead levels in schools, parks, childcare centers. And I was just like, I don't know, super impressed about the results of each of this. So anyway, all this was leading me to one of my preliminary works around the topic of lead contamination, one of them called Playground. And this was basically wanting us to imagine and see the reality of these families living in very industrial places where their playgrounds are like just around the industries that they live in. And this was an installation in which I brought some of the soil that I collected from one of the parks, and I invited people to interact with the soil and like imagine this playground in which they can play with the soil and but in a contained and in a protected way. So this is a reality that they face like as they are playing with the soil, because probably we will ask, okay, I'm using here these gloves, but the children, they are not having that, right? So another work that resulted from this research was Bacchios bioremediating cultures. And this was basically an installation that wanted to talk about the topic, but also wanted to research more of possible solutions. So Bacchios bioremediating cultures came as a continuation of my research. Now, okay, we have this mess, what can we do? So at this class that I was telling you, the idea was to bring solutions that could be based in natural methods. And that's how I learned about phytoremediation and how plants have the capacity to absorb lead through their roots and then store them inside of these organelles that are inside of their cells called vacuoles. And that's why the name of the piece. And these vacuoles actually serve as storage units for this contaminants. So the cell cannot process this. The lead cannot be destroyed because it's, as I'm saying, an element. So the only way is to just store it. So what these plants do is that they basically just encapsulate this lead in their own bodies. And for me, that was a very powerful idea. I was like, okay, these plants are doing their part. They are like encapsulating the lead for us. So we don't have it like that available. And then also through my research, I learned about how fish bones can be also used as amendments for lead remediation. And I was like, wow, even the fish after that dead, like they're doing something. Like phosphorus interacts with lead, and then that makes it less bioavailable. So like it won't get into the food chain as easy. So I was inspired by these actions because I thought that, okay, the other than humans are doing their part. How can we really think ourselves of possible agent changers? Okay. So at the same time, I was like, I cannot just think of this as a single situation and just cause effect. It's really a system, a complex system in which we have different actors. And we have, in the yellow one, we have blood that is contaminated with lead, because actually that's a way to see how lead is entering the body by a blood test. And people that are in these areas are having access to that. But yeah, that's a way to see. But then we have also a city that has that is designed to have cars. That we have really a very high car dependency, in which like if we need a lot of cars, then we need a lot of batteries. And so the third image that you can see here, you will see now, okay, our car dependency is actually creating these conditions for people that live in these communities to really be living in environmental injustices. Like they are the ones that are paying the price of our car dependency. And all this to say that it's not just the humans, but actually part of the research that I was doing is that even there's reports of scientists like learning from urban urban animals, in this case birds, of having also like being impacted by lead, and even like presenting different behavior resulting from the lead exposure. And so all this, and at the same time, I don't want to go just the route of like everything is bad. At the same time, I wanted to acknowledge the power and the action of these plants that are capable of remediation, the power and the action of the fish bones or the fish that after that are capable of remediation too. So these are like the ideas that are in the piece. And my response to that was like, okay, I want to be like the plants. I want to encapsulate this contaminant in this vacuoles. And the idea was to create this vacuole-shaped ceramics containing the soil that was contaminated and presenting and representing the 29th childcare centers, schools, and parks that were most impacted by this contaminant. So this installation was meant to be interactive. People were invited to come and walk around the vacuoles and see themselves in this like microscopic imagery, because my idea was to call to each other, like to call to action to the humans and to the people that are coming to the exhibition, to see ourselves as these vacuoles, as these organisms capable of remediation. So during the time, yeah, people were seeing themselves in this microscope that was projected into the wall, and at the same time, they were able to see videos of this different participants of the system. So, well, that included also a poem and having a small ecosystem that was performing remediation during the duration of the exhibition. So with that, I want to check into the time. How are we doing? Okay, so a continuation of that research made me, I was actually invited by Self-Graphics, a gallery that is located in Boyle Heights, which is one of the impacted communities, to do a project with them. And I was so excited because actually I remember when I finished the vacuoles, I was feeling a little bit powerless still, because I was talking about the problem, I was talking about the possible solutions, but I didn't feel that I was doing much. So I remember that I wrote a blog after finishing that piece saying, like, describing the project and the research and everything, and saying, I wish I could actually go to the communities and work with them to find an alternative solution for remediation. And I didn't think that like someone will read it actually, but apparently this person from this gallery read it, and that's why they contacted me. And right now we're working in a project we started in 2020 named Prospering Backyards, which is basically working together and building soil and community together. And the idea, this is the project that we are right now working for the exhibition of the Pacific Standard exhibition from the Getty. I'm right now in the research phase, so everything that I will share with you is the research part. But this project that I started as an art and science piece, I think right now is getting more into an initiative and more like a movement. And I'm so happy to say that, like, yeah, we're working in this with a very amazing team. But our intention is going from what I already described of these communities, wounded soil and wounded communities where there is danger on children, cancer and respiratory illnesses, disconnection from soil, even fear of soil, pain, distrust, anger, and also the non-human communities affected, to healthy soil and healthy communities where we can see soil as a source of life, because that is what it is, soil. Being able to connect again with soil, being able to play in their backyards, growing our own food, being able to empower our communities and building these relationships. And for me, that was so key to really try to heal this connection with soil. Because as you remember, I was saying that when I was little, I was like really in my playground, like in my backyard playing with soil. And I just imagine the idea of these children not being able to play in their own backyard. So I don't know, that this is what we are trying to do. And the objectives is to take action to reduce lead exposure from people's exposure to lead in their own backyards, to build capacity in the community, to do a holistic approach. So we are considering, of course, the rights of the land, the rights of the different organisms, and also wanting not to propose anything that will be later causing more damage than the solution. So we're partnering with different organizations for doing that, including the Natural History Museum. And that's why I'm now associated with them, because we are participating, the research is inviting Dr. Celestian from the Minerals Lab to also come with us and do the project together. And we're wanting to do this open source and in collaboration. So at the end of our research, that is going to take 1 year, we will be able to share with the rest of the community. So we will have like a DIY method that anyone could apply in their own backyards. So we can have this as an alternative for people's exposure to lead. So during the projects, we had well, the part of capacity building, and this year we had 5 workshops in soil health and art activities where we invited community members to come with us. We had a specialist talking about soil, and right now we're in the second part, in the second phase, in which we are actually doing the research. And yeah, part of the activities of our soil time workshops, it was really beautiful to come to see families and people that were really excited about soil. This is the area that we are right now focusing in our Prospering Backyards project, really being able to extend the area that the government took at the beginning, as I showed you, including the 10,000 properties. We're going farther because we've seen that people that are not in the radius are also impacted by lead. So this is definitely something that we have to, like, we wanted to offer that opportunity to people because a lot of them were very worried and not having any access to this type of resources. And what we are doing is that we are working at the lab. We work with the Minerals Lab to develop the method for analysis. We are developing the method for analysis for lead, for microbial diversity, so we can see what is living in soil as we're taking the sample. And when we apply our amendments or our method, we're not damaging the soil biodiversity. We offered a free soil testing during the summer, and we are right now starting with this 15 community members, a cohort that will be testing remediation in their own backyards. So yeah, it was a very beautiful experience to be able to go to people's homes and to talk with them and to, besides being able to collect a sample, to really get to know them better, to know what are their fears, the relationship with their own backyard. So I feel very, very honored that I've had that opportunity. And I'm right now speaking myself, but I can say that it's not just me. Right now, this initiative has brought more people that are volunteering their time and just wanting to be part of this. And I'm very happy that a lot of people are really wanting to commit for this cause. And just wanted to show, so yeah, what happened is that a team of volunteers took samples from the community members, and we got the results from the lab. We made the analysis ourselves, and we were able to create this graph so people could receive a report of their samples. And what we found was that in the soil sampling season that we had more than 50 samples taken. And as you can see, less than 10% were the ones that were below the 80 parts per million, which is the limit in California for lead. So this brings us to the situation of like, yeah, there is a need. And I hope that through the method that we're developing, people will be benefited from this. But as you can see, the rest and even the red part is like, they are having concentrations of lead that are higher than 400 parts per million, which is already a lot. And well, we are creating now maps that we can, we are planning to release the results and maps soon, like expecting next week actually, where we can share what it has been our experience about this. And just to finalize, I want to talk now about community science, and it's basically the phase that we are right now in. And it's inviting these community members that we detected lead in their soil to be part of the research team and to be part of our project so they can apply amendments or things to apply into the soil so they can reduce their exposure to lead. So one of the research, one of the methods that we are trying to apply is the use of zeolites, which are minerals that have the capacity to encapsulate lead. So Aaron Sleshin, the doctor from the minerals department, he has a lot of experience about using zeolites, and that's why we chose that as a method. And the idea is to apply that in people's backyards. You can see a little bit of our test plot. We will have those test plots in community members' backyards. And we're gonna be testing throughout 1 year what are the lead levels in these test plots. And if we find that this method works, then they will be able to share with the rest of the community. And yeah, and a method that will be very easy because zeolites are meant to just be applied on the surface. And then we are testing the idea of partnering zeolites with compost and mulch and other things. So I think that this is it for my presentation, and thank you so much.
We have some time for Q&A. Do we have any questions?
For the cross-border background project, do you have plans to translate that departments that we already, or just this right now?
Yeah, definitely. Right now, as I mentioned, I'm in the research part, so I'm like documenting everything, even considering like what does like this mean is as an installation in people's backyards. But yeah, definitely we're gonna translate that into the gallery for 2024, the exhibition. Yeah.
Do you like proper backgrounds like in other groups or like other or interested in outside of LA?
I would love that. Yes, definitely. And that's why we're really wanting to make this accessible to anyone, and like, yeah, like just being able to publish it and maybe people that in other parts, because actually this situation is happening everywhere. Like, yeah, the contamination that comes from smelters and places where they do this type of recycling affects a lot of communities. And I can say that even like, for example, I was doing my research learning that a lot of the batteries that are not recycled here in the US because of these regulations that are getting harder are now sent to other countries, including Mexico, or even the place that I was living before coming here to do the recycling. So there is a lot of need for that. And definitely I would love to see if other communities can be benefited from this. Yeah. Sure.
The variant exhibit that you shared at the beginning, I was interested, how did it change for you to move from being a performer inside the bubble to having it in a gallery where you had performing artists in the bubble? Was there a difference for you and maybe for people who observed it?
Yeah, I think that there's a big difference. Well, for me, as I experience a piece, yeah, I feel that being myself the one that is performing that makes it more personal and actually, like I can say, more real. I had the opportunity to do another performance inside of the gallery where I was the one performing instead of the person. And it's also a different context, like being inside of the gallery. I think that it's like you are observed as this part of the piece, and not, it doesn't feel like as I don't know, I don't want to say natural because it's not the correct term, but I feel that, yeah, there is already a connotation that comes from being observed inside of this bubble, that probably that's what that like organisms feel when they are inside homes, being observed and being just part of the environment, like as an ornament. So I feel that there was, of course, a difference. And I also saw a difference in how people interacted with the piece. When they were like, the way that the installation was planned was that people will first encounter the first dome that had just the plants and the fungi. And I'm sorry if I'm going to that. Okay. And the fungi, which is the one on the top. So the people will enter and will see the projection, will see the first dome, but they will see just the plants and the mushrooms. And when they turn turn around and saw the other dome, there was like, yeah, a sense of like, well, what is going here? And I could see the difference of how people will approach the first dome, like really being like more playful and like really coming like very close to the dome compared to the one that had a human, right? So yeah, it's very interesting to notice that also and see how this, yeah, the installation also played a good part of people's behavior to the piece. Mm-hmm.
Time for one more. Overnight volunteers.
I would love that. Yes. Yeah, and it's very interesting. I probably didn't mention that this is my very first time working in community-based art, and I'm learning as I'm doing. And it's also a very great opportunity to really be able to work not as a solo artist, but like really be involved in a group. And I'm really enjoying this part. Of course, I also have my own studio practice and I keep doing my own projects. But yeah, if you have a chance to also collaborate with other artists and like work together towards a cause, I think it's a very beautiful learning experience. Yeah. Thank you.